Alright, let's look at example 2.
Oh, but I don't.
Frank, just do the example.
Okay.
So, in this problem, we can choose a variable. Now, this is what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's easier to choose one variable over the other. If I chose the y's in this equation, I'd have to, what could I multiply one or both equations by to make these the same number but opposite signs? And in this case, what's the common denominator? That's what you got to think. What's the common multiple between 10 and 6? Maybe 30. I could, now you don't write this down, but I could multiply by what? How do I get 30? I multiply by positive 5, and then I multiply by negative 3, right? Because then I would get, in the top, I would get positive 30y, and in the bottom I'd get negative 30y. But then I also have to distribute to the rest of them. In this case, it would work. These would cancel. That's how you would do that. But it's a little bit more work because I have to multiply both equations by a number. However, if I choose the x's, what's the common denominator between, or the common multiple between 16 and 8? Well, that's just 16. So that means all I would have to do is multiply the bottom equation by, 8 times 2 is 16. And I do it by a positive 2 because watch what happens. 2 times negative 8 is negative 16, and then they cancel. So I'll have 16x minus 10y equals 10. And in the bottom, I'll have negative 16x. Well, I'll do this in red. I have negative 16x minus 12y equals 12. And then I add the two equations. That was the next step. Look, the variables cancel, right? That's what I wanted. The x's to cancel. Those are the ones that I chose. So hopefully you can see sometimes it's easier to pick one variable over the other. And in this case, it's easier to pick the x's. And then I add negative 10 plus negative 12. That's negative 22y equals positive 22. And then the next step is to solve. This is easy. Solve by dividing by negative 22. And I get y equals negative 1. But I'm not done. The next step was to plug this into any of the two original equations. And in this case, I'm going to plug it into the second one just because they have smaller coefficients. So I'm plugging it in for the y, though. So I have negative 8x,
minus 6 times negative 1.
Minus 6 times negative 1. So minus 6 times negative 1 equals 6.
And then you solve.
And yeah, and then I got it. Then you solve. So I have negative 8x, negative 6 times negative 1 is positive 6 equals 6. Now I'm going to get the letters to one side, numbers to the other. So I will subtract 6 over. That goes away. 6 minus 6 is 0. That also goes away. And then negative 8x, well, I have to divide by negative 8. However, 0 divided by negative 8, that's just 0 still. This is still just 0. So my ordered pair is 0, negative 1. That's the point where these two lines cross. Easy. I mean, it's not so bad. Let's try another one. So here, I think you should try it before me. Remember, I'll run through the steps. I'll talk through the steps. The first step is to choose a variable to eliminate. Sometimes there's an easier choice, but if you just pick one, you'll still be able to do it. Multiply by one or both equations by a number so that a variable cancels. Then you're going to add the two equations, and you're going to solve the remaining equation, and you're going to plug that into the originals and then solve again. And then you'll have your answer. All right, so hopefully pause it right now and try it, and then I'll do it in a second. And I'm just going to choose the x's to cancel out. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Actually, I'm going to choose the y's just because they have smaller coefficients. So I'll choose the y's. Now I'm thinking, what's the common denominator, or what's the common multiple between -2 and -5? Well, that's 10, but I want them to be opposite signs. So I'll multiply what times 5 gives me 10. That would be 2. And what times 2 gives me 10? Well, that would be 5. However, I want them to be different signs. If I multiplied it right now, I would get -10, and I would get -10. So I'll make this one a negative. Doesn't really matter. So I'm changing both equations this time. Whoop.
Every time the bell rings, I think my heart stops. It's
I mean, you're not even on a heart monitor. Why would you think that?
Who are you?
All right, never mind. So I'll distribute the -5. So in the top equation, I get -15x plus 10y. -2 times -5 is +10. And then -10. Right? Okay. And then in the bottom, I'll get +10x, right? 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times -5 is -10. So we have the same. These will definitely cancel. Equals 20, it looks like. And then I add the two equations. So that cancels out. -15 plus 10 is -5x equals, and that looks like 10. And then I'll solve. Divide both sides by -5. And that gives me x equals -2. However, I'm not done. Remember, plug it in to one of the originals. And in this one, I'm going to plug it into the top one just because it has smaller numbers. And so it'll be 3 times x, which is -2. So 3 times -2. And then minus 2y. And then equals 2. And then I'll just solve this by getting the numbers to one side, letters to the other. So this would be -6 minus 2y equals 2. We've definitely done this before. Plus 6, I'm adding that over, so plus 6. Don't forget the negative. Don't forget the negative. -2y equals 8. And then divide both sides by -2. So I get y equals -4. So my answer is -2, -4. Easy. Isn't that beautiful?
And that beautiful Therese.
Isn't that beautiful? Okay. We're done here. Goodbye.